Welcome to our channel. Here the darkest stories don't stay hidden forever. This is When Darkness Falls.
Oh, what?
911, where's your emergency? Hello? Who's that in the background?
There's 6 of us and 1 is missing.
Okay, there's 6, but 1 is missing. So 6, do you guys have life jackets on?
Yes, ma'am. We have more than enough life jackets, but we're on the bank.
So you're missing. Who's missing?
Female Mallory Beach is missing.
Okay. Where?
In the hospital after the crash, Paul showed no remorse, even reportedly flirting with the nurse.
It was the night of February 24th, 2019. A 19-year-old set out for what should have been an ordinary night of fun, a night filled with laughter, friends, and making memories. But by sunrise, everything had changed. The entire community was left searching for answers. Hey, so let's dive into the story of Mallory Beach, a case filled with heartbreak, mystery, and a search for justice. First, let's get to know who Mallory was. Mallory Madison Beach was born on April 18, 1999, and she lived in Brunson, South Carolina. She was a beautiful person inside and out. Her parents, Renee and Philip, had divorced when Mallory was a child. They were co-parenting and doing a great job. From a young age, she had a light about her that seemed to fill every room she walked into, leaving people smiling in her wake. Friends and family remember her vibrant, kind, and full of heart, a young woman who loved animals, outdoors, and making people smile. In high school, Mallory was very active and outgoing. She played soccer at Wade Hampton High School and was known for her friendly nature and strong work ethic. After graduating, she worked at a clothing store, and she dreamt about her future while enjoying time with her close-knit group of friends. From the very start, she brought joy and laughter to her family's life. Her parents, Philip and Renee Beach, described her as a loving, compassionate young woman who cared deeply for animals and people alike. Growing up, Mallory was the kind of person who made friends easily wherever she went. She loved being outdoors, whether it was hunting with her dad or relaxing on the beach or spending time with friends. She was known for her big smile. The Beach family is close-knit, grounded in faith, and deeply connected to their small community. They've been described as humble, supportive, and the kind of people who would drop everything to help a friend in need. At 19, Mallory was dating Anthony Cook, sharing plans, laughter, like any young couple in love. Life seemed full of promises. Mallory and Miley had been inseparable since preschool, 2 little girls who grew up side by side. A few years later, Morgan entered the picture and quickly became part of that circle. The 3 girls were best friends, sharing secrets, laughter, and even their jobs. All of them worked together at the boutique. The boys, too, had a long history. Anthony and Paul had been friends since 2nd and 3rd grade, a bond forged over childhood adventures and school hallways. And Connor? He was Anthony's first cousin. He was always a part of the mix. Together, they were a group of young people with lives ahead of them until one devastating night that changed everything. On the night of February 24th, 2019, what began as a fun of evening ended in unimaginable tragedy, setting off a chain of events that would rock not only Mallory's family, but the entire community, and eventually expose dark secrets tied to one of the South Carolina's most powerful families. Everyone knew their names. Just a few hours before everyone met up, Paul Murdaugh used his older brother's, Buster's, ID to buy alcohol at the local convenience store called Parker's Kitchen. Later that afternoon, around 2 to 2:30 p.m., the group gathered at the Murdaugh's family river house, was known to the locals, called Murdaugh's Island. As the sun began to set, sometime between 6:45 and 6:50 p.m., their destination? A house party at Oyster's Roast over on Pocky Island. They arrived there between 7 and 7:30 p.m. Before leaving Pocky's Island that night, Anthony suggested they take an Uber back instead of returning by boat. He was worried about how much drinking had got on and about navigating the waters in the dark and fog. But deep down, he knew and he felt that he needed to stay with them, no matter what. Also, others at the party also urged the group to take an Uber home, concerned about them drinking and how the dangerous conditions of the water can be. A number of the people offered to drive them back home. Anthony recalls, but I think Paul was a little too proud to do that. Morgan also says she'll never stop regretting getting back on that boat. Despite all the warnings and what everybody was telling them, by around midnight, the group decided to leave the party. Instead of heading straight home, Paul steered the boat toward Beaufort, determined to make a stop at the dockside bar. Once they docked, Paul and Connor went into Luther's for about 20 to 30 minutes, where they took shots, while the rest of the group stayed outside waiting. And after a while, some of the group did go in to Luther's. By 1:15 in the morning, they were back on the water, heading home. The ride quickly turned dangerous. Anthony and Mallory pleaded with Paul to let someone else drive because he was becoming increasingly erratic. But Paul refused, snapping at them. "It's my boat and nobody can drive my effing boat but me." Connor Cook later stated in his deposition that the boat's light weren't working at all. To see anything, he had to hold a tiny handheld flashlight, but it was so small and it barely made a difference. As Connor put it, that water was so big, you can't hardly see it from the bank anyway. Inside the boat, chaos was brewing beneath the roar of the engine and the darkness in the water. Miley would later say that Paul kept letting go of the wheel, forcing Connor to reach over and grab it again and again, trying desperately to keep them on course. Anthony Cook was growing furious, watching Paul spiral out of control. Then Paul turned his rage toward Morgan. He had screamed at her, demanding to know why she wasn't taking his side. Morgan fired back. "You're screaming at us and not making sense. You're acting crazy." Paul glared at her and then sneered. "You know what's crazy? Your father's not making enough money to support your family." Morgan's eyes had filled with tears, and in a flash, Paul slapped her across her face. Miley, her voice breaking, would later say, "You could tell by the way he did it. It wasn't the first time, and it's heartbreaking to see one of your best friends being abused right in front of your face." By then, tensions exploded on board. According to Miley and Anthony, everyone was fighting, arguing as Paul grew more intoxicated. He began driving in circles, idling aimlessly in the water, then suddenly slamming the throttle forward. The boat shot ahead so violently that the passengers lost their footing and fell back. It felt like the bow was lifting straight into the air. The boat's onboard Garmin later recorded the spike in speeds, yet even in those terrifying moments, they had life jackets on board. Not one of them put them on. Meanwhile, Paul had stripped off all of his clothes except for his boxers, further alarming his friends as the night spiraled toward tragedy. Paul's behavior grew even more alarming. According to the interviews, he shoved, slapped, and even spit on his girlfriend Morgan. A shocking display that wasn't the first time he had acted this way. It's a dark glimpse into the pattern of aggression that had surfaced before, hinting at a deeper troubles beneath the surface. Then around 2:17 in the morning, when 20-year-old Paul Murdaugh, allegedly drunk, lost control of his family's boat. In an instant, it smashed into Anchors Creek Bridge in Beaufort County, sending his terrified passengers hurling in the cold, dark water below.
What bridge is, Paul, what bridge is this? Paul, what bridge?
911, where's your emergency? Hello? Police, fire, EMS. Hello?
We're in a boat crash on Archer Street.
Whereabouts on Archer Street?
In Archer Street, the only bridge on Archer Street.
Archer Street?
Archer's Creek.
Archer's Creek. Archer's Creek. Is it?
Island.
Okay. What's going on?
It's by Paris Island.
Right. What's going on?
We're in a boat crash.
You know what kind of a?
A boat crash. Have someone missing. Please send someone.
No, we're calling, okay? And then, well, who's that in the background?
There's 6 of us and one is missing.
Okay, there's 6, but one is missing. Do you guys have life jackets on?
Yes, ma'am. We have more than enough life jackets, but we're on the bank.
So you're missing. Who's missing?
Female Mallory Beach is missing.
Okay. What's your name, sir?
My name is Connor Cook.
Okay, we're on the way. Just you need to give me as much information as you can, okay? Just stay on the line with me because we're getting your coordinates. The missing person wearing a life jacket?
No, ma'am, she was not.
Just stay on the line with me until they get to you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
The crash had left others severely injured. Connor himself suffered a broken jaw, while Morgan had her hand badly hurt, and she'd carry this long after that night. And then came the evidence no one could ignore. At the hospital, Paul, his blood alcohol content was measured at 24%, 3 times the legal limit. And this was several hours later after the boat crash. And that's 3 times legal limit to operate a boat. Anthony refused to leave Mallory behind. He wouldn't go. He did not want to go to the hospital without her. And immediately the deputies tried to convince him, and they did escort him eventually, heartbroken and in shock. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the ER. Paul was so combative with the EMTs, belligerent and out of control. In the early hours after the crash, phones began to ring. An unimaginable nightmare unfolded for the Beach family. Mallory's father, Philip, learned of the accident and his daughter's disappearance just a few hours after the boat slammed into the bridge. The moment he had heard these words, his world shattered. Later, he would describe the sheer panic and disbelief that had washed over him, knowing his daughter Mallory was missing in those dark, cold waters. Mallory's Aunt Lynn received the news from another family member, a single call that would change everything. Shock, confusion, and fear for a young woman they all adored and loved fiercely. Mallory's mother, Renee, she had learned the devastating news not from the police or any of the EMTs, but from her own mother. One mother's voice breaking as she told another mother that her daughter was gone, missing somewhere in the blackness of the river. For the Beach family, this was just the beginning of long, agonizing days, praying for a miracle that would never come. In the chaos after the crash, Mallory's parents, Philip and Renee, pleaded with law enforcement. They wanted to go down to the scene themselves to see where their daughter had disappeared into the dark waters. But an officer told them firmly he had strict orders, no one was allowed. And in all aspect, that is correct. Yet, not long afterwards, Philip and Renee watched in disbelief as Randolph Murdaugh and Maggie Murdaugh drove right down to the beach to where the boat still sat. And later, Alec Murdaugh's brother, John, was permitted to tow the boat away, even while the investigation was still very much active. Sound strange? Me too. Meanwhile, authorities and volunteers searched the waters. Then on March 3rd, 2019, long agonizing days after the accident, there was finally a discovery no one wanted to make. 2 volunteers, part of the search efforts, found Mallory Beach's body about 5 miles down the river from the crash site. Kinda seems funny, only 5 miles, and it took them 8 days to discover her body. It's heartbreaking. It was the moment the Beach's family's worst fears were realized, and in that moment a small community understood the true cost of one reckless night. Near the broad boat landing, a heartbreaking end to an agonizing wait. To the Beach family, it was the moment their worst fears became reality, and the moment a small South Carolina community realized how deep this tragedy and the secrets that were surrounding it would go. In the wake of Mallory Beach's death, her mother Renee took a stand. Determined mother to hold people accountable for the chain of events that led to her daughter's tragedy. As a mother, she would not stop till she knew that the people that were responsible would be held accountable. She filed a lawsuit against several members of the powerful Murdaugh family and others connected to that fateful night. Among those named was Paul's older brother, Buster, who allegedly let him take his driver's license so Paul could buy the alcohol that he should have never had. Paul's mother, Maggie, who was also sued, accused of allowing Paul to use the family boat even while he was drinking. And Alec himself, along with the store where the teen had bought the alcohol, were included in the lawsuit, which eventually reached the settlement in January of 2023. But it didn't stop there. Renee's legal action reached even further, naming the host of the Oscar roast, where the night began, the owner of the bar where Paul was seen taking shots after the party, and the convincing store owner who sold him even more alcohol. One mother's quest for justice exposed a network of negligence and set off shockwaves that would ripple far beyond the banks of that dark river her daughter died in. In July 2023, the Beach family had reached a $15 million settlement with Parker's Corporation. That's the owner of the convenience store, had sold alcohol to Paul. Now, if you're like me, your mind is spinning, trying to grasp how something so senseless could happen. And the deeper you look into Paul's past, the clearer it becomes that maybe, just maybe, he never truly believed there were consequences for his actions. So let's rewind to December 25th, 2017, Christmas night. Paul and his on-again and off-again girlfriend Morgan were driving home from a holiday party. According to Morgan, Paul insisted on finishing the drive, even though he'd been drinking heavily. Moments later, Paul lost control of his truck on a curve, flipping it into a ditch. Shaking and scared, Morgan tried to call 911 like you would normally do, but Paul wasn't having it. He ripped the phone from her hands and threw it. Instead, Morgan said he picked up his own phone and called his grandfather and then his father. Soon, Paul's mother, father, and grandfather arrived at the scene, and what happened next would speak volumes against the power of Murdaugh family wheeled behind the scenes. They quickly removed the guns from Paul's truck. Then they gathered up the heavily scattered beer inside and outside the vehicle from the roadside. Because the family's actions that night, there was no police report was ever filed, no official record of Paul's crash, or the drinking that led to it. And so the pattern continued, a young man's shield from paying for his consequences, while the stage was being set for the tragedy that would just come over a year later. But this madness doesn't end here, my friends. Just 3 days before the scheduled hearing on June 10th for the tragic death of Mallory, Paul and his mother Maggie were found brutally murdered at their home. But that, my friends, is a story we'll be diving into very soon. So stay safe and always lock your windows and doors. Bye for now.